But first, we're going to cast some StarCraft, some non-Christmas themed StarCraft. We'll just have to keep Jingle Bells in our minds and hearts. Spawning in the lower right-hand corner of Hard Lead, we have SHIN, formerly known as RagnaroK, finally changing his in-game name to match his out-of-game name. Thank God. His opponent in the upper left-hand corner is none other than Classic. Oh my God, that's so true. RagnaroK is no more. And now RagnaroK is the only Ragnarok related name in StarCraft. RagnaroK has won by being the first and the last Ragnarok themed StarCraft 2 name. The Ragnarok gamers rejoice. As the pro player Ragnarok has now become the lower part of your leg, specifically the part that hits coffee tables and nightstands very frequently. It's like really painful when that happens. I pretty much always have a bruise or like a cut on my shin, and I routinely never have any clue where it comes from. I feel like we all have a spot where we just have random bruises. For me, it's my shins. I like always have some bruise or a cut on my shin, and I'm like, what happened? What was going on? It's just so mysterious. Also, before he changed his name to SHIN, RagnaroK would have Hibiam as his in-game name for like, I mean, honestly, maybe over a year at this point. And finally, he changed it to match up with his the name he's been using competitively. If you're wondering why his name is SHIN, first of all, it's the perfect Korean StarCraft player, Korean pro player name. But it is actually his name. It is his family name, if I'm not mistaken. But what's very funny about it is, like, StarCraft Korean pro gamers are named after one of two things, generally speaking. And by generally speaking, I mean 99% of the time. They're either a random word from the dictionary in English or some form of their name. That's it. Those are your options. You're a Korean pro gamer playing StarCraft 2. You have two options. That's it. That's them's. And now with SHIN, he's managed to do both. I mean, what a god. It's not only his name, but it's also just a random word in English. And I think that's beautiful. I think that's truly beautiful. I think it's less beautiful that Classic didn't put a unit in the door, but also those Adepts did nothing. I know I haven't really been talking about this game. It's focused on SHIN's name. But those Adepts got basically no damage done. Not a good trade there for Classic. SHIN got to be very happy with that defense. And because it was Void Ray first, there's no Oracle damage happening either. Only one drone has died. And, you know, we just watched Classic up against Hyperion before this, and Classic got, I mean, by the end of the game, it was like 15, 18 drones, right? All that early game harassment is what made Classic's push feel so strong. A push like that here for Classic just won't feel the same. And oh my God, the Oracle even dying before the recall. That's bad on every single possible level here for Classic. Classic's going to go for an Archon drop. I'm not seeing Charge start up to go for the big push here, but yeah, there it is. So I'm imagining we're going to see a few more gates go down here, and Classic's going to go for the same kind of push we just saw in that last game against Hyperion. Archon's hitting, a bunch of charge lots getting warped in. There's a couple more gates. But again, because there wasn't that significant drone damage from earlier, SHIN's in a much better spot than Hyperion was last game. This is a totally fine spot to defend from, as long as Shin starts building roaches pretty much right away. And yeah, there he goes, starting up those roaches. I don't know if he's seen really what's happening here. I don't think he's seen the Warp Prism. It's been pretty hidden. He is keeping an eye on things, and these Lings are actually going to get some counter damage done. But Shin needs to be focused back at home. The Archons are going to hit very soon. And yeah, I mean, 8 roaches on the way. That is such a great start before Classic even gets over here with the Archons, with any Charge Lot Warpins. I think Shin's going to be able to defend this quite nicely. The longer Classic waits, too, the better this is for Shin. Shin getting some units kind of in position, doesn't realize exactly where this is coming from. Not a lot of creep spread over here. The Queens will spot this. There's already Queens in position. Roach is in position. Charge is not done yet. Classic getting a little too early. Oh my god, he's going to get like no damage done. He kills a Queen. The Queen's, though, going to push this Prism away. We'll get out of there. And those are just not the trades that Classic is looking for. He just sacrificed a whole bunch of Zealots for like a handful of Lings and a Queen. It's just not what you're looking for here. The Archon's trying to get some drone kills, trying to make this somewhat worth it. And we do see Classic is on a solid worker count back at home, so getting a few drone kills will make a bit of a difference. Obviously behind this, he's got that Blink and +1 coming up as well, so Classic isn't just completely dead. This was not an all-in. It wasn't very committed even. The problem is, Shin has lost 4 drones this entire game and has just been able to build units with impunity. And he's got a few Hydras here, so even the Void Ray can't hold this up. Shin is just up 60, almost 70 army supply right now. The Void Ray goes down. These rocks are getting busted. Shin recognized exactly what kind of game this was for Classic, and it's so important for the Protoss to get that early drone damage and keep the economy of the Zerg stifled. He was not able to do that, and this is exactly the response you expect to see from the Zerg. Build lots of unit, attack. And I think it's going to be overwhelming here for Shin. As he, well, he knocks the legs right out from under Classic. You're right, Fear Dragon. That is going to be fun. I had not considered that. You're on point with that. Kicked his economy in the shins. Ah, that's a good one. I'm going to try not to use that, at least for a while. I'll let you be the first one to use that on broadcast. But I am going to make some leg puns here. I'm trying to be a little more subtle with it, you know? A little bit more subtle. My audience is pretty quick to pick up on these kinds of jokes. I don't need to say kicks his shins out. I can just say, you know, kicks his legs out from under him. They'll make the connection that shins are a part of your leg. I don't know if you guys knew that. Maybe some people need an anatomy lesson. Your shin, it's like right here. It was really hard. Pants are tight. Did that for you. It's the sacrifices I make for my audience. I hope you guys appreciate them. Let's get into game 2 here. Spawning in the upper right-hand corner of Alcyone, we have the aforementioned frontal lower leg. It is Shin, the blue Zerg. His opponent, the lower left, Twisted Minds, Protoss in the red, Classic. You know, making too many puns during a broadcast, as Sean Connery would say, it's shinful. Happy with that one. I get to do a Sean Connery reference and make a pun. That's a double win for me. It's a win-win, but only for me. Kind of a lose for everybody else. I'm not really counting you guys, so we go with a win-win. I'll have to come up with a few more of those. Oh, Shingular. There you go. There you go. You could really go for an old school Shingular reference, too, where you talk about the phone company. Singular. But again, you have to be doing it with a Sean Connery accent. So you have to relate it to Sean Connery somehow. That's the hard part. You know, that's what makes punning truly an art. It really is an art form. You know, I see people try and fail at it. And, you know, my puns, I don't make too many of them. But I try to make sure the ones I make really hit the nail on the head. Another Stargate opening from Classic. We'll see if he can get some more harassment done in this game. Again, it was pretty straightforward that last game. Classic just didn't get any harassment done early on. It makes his build significantly weaker. Shin just holds it off and makes units and attacks. And it really shows you how fragile the Protoss build is. And it looks so strong when it works. This has been pretty common at the high level, sending Adepts and Oracles across to get harassment done. And it can really, really snowball. Max Packs makes it look insanely good. I think it was like a couple weeks ago, he played against Dark, and it just felt like Dark couldn't do anything. But of course, if you lose 12 drones at the start of the game, it's going to feel like you can't do anything. And that's just the position that the Protoss can put you in. But on the other side of things, it's a lot of, you know, it's a lot of faith in those units and in their ability to keep the Zerg building drones instead of units, keep whatever units they have back at home defending, hurt their economy so they can't do any follow-up attacks too quickly. And that's what allows you to expand so quick and only expand with like an Adept in the wall and maybe a Void Ray over top. The Classic's going to evacuate this area. A little worried about the Lings coming across. It should be fine to take that base. There's not much more coming out of Shin. And again, you know, the Adepts have kind of poked across, but they didn't really get anything done. Only that one Overlord going down to the Void Ray. We'll see if Classic can get some more damage done here. Ooh, but he's got a different plan this time. He's going into a Fleet Beacon and a second Stargate. So this should be the Tempest build from him, which has been pretty popular. I love to see Tempest making their way back into the meta here. Making their way downtown. Walking a little faster than they used to. Faces past. And they're bound for the Zerg base. Shin just going for the Roach Horn in the lair. Doesn't quite know what he's up against yet. It's really hard to get a read on this. It's the nice thing about the Void Ray opener is you can kill all of that scouting potential for Shin to get into the main base. Now, I have seen some Zerg players able to sneak by some Lings at key moments past the wall into the base, but so far Classic's been pretty buttoned up with this Adept. And this time Classic is able to get some worker damage done. So far he hasn't lost anything, just killing a few drones, a couple Overlords. It's just being annoying here, right? These kinds of things. It's just annoying for Shin. He's not going to be able to get in good scouting. It's going to be a while before he fully sees what he's up against, but what he is going to see is very important. He's going to see no ground units here. None at all. And I feel like that is almost as much of a tell as anything else. And I was talking about Tempest, man. I was fully ready for Tempest until literally just now. Classic going straight to Carrier. That is a little surprising to me. I haven't seen Carrier quite as much. Tempest have definitely been the more popular choice in this matchup with a quick Fleet Beacon like this. Particularly on this map, I've seen Tempest a few times recently. But Classic going to go for double Carrier. But this is kind of crazy. He's going just for 2 carriers. He is fully trying to bait Shin into going for like 12, 15 corruptors. He just wants to bait him in. And then he's going to nail him with a ground army. He's got +1 blink on the way, a bunch of gates. His Templar Archives finishing up. I imagine this will be Storm. He could also just go straight for Archons and try to get a big, beefy ground army up. The carrier's flying over that base, going to go for some drone damage. The Spire is about to finish for Shin. I think the most corruptors you want to make here is about 8. He's starting off with 6. I actually don't mind 6. Especially since these carriers are already taking a bunch of damage for just kind of existing. This one's getting quite low, actually.
Oh, man.
There he goes up to
Chickenman.
8. Ooh,
Wow.
He starts up +1 attack, though. Shin needs to recognize that he is up against a big ground follow-up. Classic gonna recall these guys out of there. JW hitting the channel with the nuke. Nuclear launch detected, JW. Thank you for the 9 months. Oh my God. You nuked us with the Twitch baby. What's our sub baby gonna be called? I think it's nuclear launch detected. I think that's the sub baby's name. It looks like Shin wants to attack, but like Classic's gonna have, he's gonna have a lot of stuff here. I don't know, his ground army isn't as beefy as I'd expected it to be. Shin might be able to get some damage done. Storms are gonna start laying down. Okay, Shin's gonna back up. He doesn't really want to fight this. The carriers do fall. That is both the carriers falling. So the Corruptors have now done their job. They don't really have anything else to do. I mean, there's a Void Ray, but they don't really have to worry about that at all. +1 Carapace on the way, Flyer Carapace for these Corruptors. I don't know if Shin wants to keep building those, and I don't know if he's realized that there's just absolutely no other air units coming out right now. Obviously, that possibility is going to be there for Classic. He's still has the Fleet Beacon and 2 Stargates. Oh, that's nice. Good defense from Classic. Shin going to try to jump in over here. Has some Roaches and Ravagers. Corruptors might want to come help out against this Void Ray. They will come take her out. There are some decent storms here so far out of Classic. Shin still trying to bust forward. See if he can't get some vials down on these High Templar. The High Templar don't have enough juice for a storm. There they go. There's one. Takes down the overcharged shield battery. Shin gonna back up. Still just building Roaches and Lings, though. The blink forward from Classic. Shin forced to turn and fight. The reinforcements show up. Is there enough here for Shin? Doesn't look quite like it, as some of these Ravagers getting jumped on. Good body blocking there by the Lings, but Classic gonna keep on chasing. Gonna blink forward once again. To be careful, these Stalkers are pretty fragile. The Storms are pretty far behind. But it looks like Shin's gonna get pushed all the way back, and Classic is actually ahead on workers right now. The Corruptor's getting killed as it looks like they tried to maybe get through this Nexus. And so far, Shin has not been able to get anything done with these Corruptors. Masterfully handled here by Classic. The double carrier opener, it just worked perfectly, right? It completely bamboozled Shin. He was so ready to go into an air battle, and Classic has just neglected these Stargates ever since. Hasn't built a single other air unit. And Shin, I mean, he put a bunch of money into this. Obviously, getting all those Corruptors out. 8 of them have died. There's still a couple, 4 left alive. That's 12 Corruptors and the +1 Carapace. That's a lot of investment where, 12 Hydras would have worked. And now Shin's kind of stuck on a crappy composition. Doesn't even have Bane speed yet. Up against, an 11-minute going on 5 base Protoss, who's got a pretty solid looking army. Oh my God, Classic double expanding down here. That's a pretty bold move. It'll be really nice if it pays off. He's gonna try to put some pressure on to keep Shin's economy down a little bit. There's the storm on the morphing Banelings. Oh, but a couple of Banes get in, and the High Templars all go down. Classic overextending. Maybe wasn't expecting quite so many Lings and Banes here. The Stalkers are still going to try to fight this out, blinking backwards, but the Banelings coming forward to smash in. The Stalkers splitting as much as they can. Does give good surface area for the Roaches, though. The Prism goes down. Classic's going to have to back up. And that was finally a good fight for SHIN, evening up that resources lost by quite a bit. I think SHIN's got to be much happier with his position now. As he again pushes this army off creep, keeping some of this creep alive as well. SHIN gonna get on top of that base, force a cancel. That is just the 6th of Classic, so he doesn't really mind canceling that one, I think. As he still has this one finishing up down here. SHIN's gonna try to be annoying to it. But let's see if Classic can get down there and defend it. Actually, SHIN bringing everything down here. He really wants to get the kill. The Stalker's gonna try to kill the Corruptors, but the Corruptors are just the distraction. The real damage is the rest of this army. Banelings and Lings keeping these units back as the Biles will finish off that Nexus. And Classic went from double expanding to staying on 4 bases, barely able to mine from that base at all. And honestly, this game looked pretty rough for SHIN, but it's feeling a lot better now. And it is funny, Classic going back into those carriers, just getting a couple more out, knowing that he killed a lot of the Corruptors, but I mean, SHIN can just make like 4 or 5 more Corruptors, and 2 carriers does not do that much damage. They're really not that scary. Honestly, SHIN might just want to attack without worrying about them. Needs to be careful, though. The Storm's going to lay down on top of these Banelings on the ramp. Biles trying to connect with those carriers. SHIN's just going to go back in. Can he crack up this ramp? The armor supply is pretty high for Classic, so I don't think SHIN's going to be able to bust up there like that. You have to kind of have overwhelming numbers to pull off that kind of a maneuver. Biles again going down, kind of hitting a lot of SHIN's own units there. The last of the Corruptors fall. So these carriers are still a bit of a threat, but 9 more Corruptors on the way. SHIN, I'm really surprised he hasn't expanded to the top side at all. He is working on much less of an economy than I feel like he really should be. There's been no action on the top of the map. I see no reason why he couldn't just take this base and, you know, at least have some drones transferring to it. He's got to be getting low on some of this mining here. Gonna need to transfer fairly soon, but he's trying to get into a greater spire. He's got that hive finished up. Classic is on +3 attack, and he is getting +1 ship weapons and +1 shield, so he's trying to keep those upgrades cooking. SHIN's upgrades, not in that good of a spot. He's on +1 melee, +1 missile attacks, and +1 flyer carapace. Not exactly looking great across the board. And again, I just do not know why SHIN is not taking bases. He's finally going to put down a hatchery up here. I really wouldn't hate to see a double expand like Classic tried to do earlier. And I mean, he kind of did again, right? I think SHIN forced to cancel on this base again. And it looks like the Lynx might be able to come in here and do the same thing a 3rd time. Now that's going to be enough Lynx to force that cancel. Wait, hold on. Hold the phone. Turns out Protoss is pretty good, but here we go. Banelings coming back in, smashing on top of a lot of these units. The Biles connecting a little bit. The Corruptors going to dominate this Air Force. Carriers trying to kill as many Roaches and Ravs as they can before that happens. It does look like with the fresh warping of Stalkers here, Classic's going to be able to hold on. He loses 3 of his 4 carriers. SHIN losing a lot on the retreat here. This is quite painful. The base does stay alive, though, for Classic. SHIN just trying to remax and get back out here. But again, his economy hasn't been quite as good as you would expect it to be. And now Classic, with that superior economy that he's had for at least part of this game. He's been on 90 drone or probes for a while, but doesn't really show here. He is going to lay down a bunch of static defense, though. It's going to force SHIN to make more Banes. Oh my god, there's Ultras coming out. Didn't even realize there was an Ultra Cavern up here for SHIN. But he's got Adrenal finishing up. Ultra's on the way. Chitinous is on the way. SHIN's going to have a very powerful ground army. And while more carriers are coming out, It's just, yeah, I mean, 4 carriers against 11 corruptors. Problem is, 4 carriers still isn't like that super scary, and ultras really just don't die to carriers all that easily. Classic gonna try to take a base up to the north side. It's funny, Classic's had like 1 more base than SHIN this entire game. Oh, he's got a recall down here though, as SHIN is attacking recalls, but it's just the High Templar. These storms gonna land on ultras. That is not what you're looking for the storms. The bad weather does not affect them all that much. Some storms on the high ground as well, trying to save these carriers, but the corruptors, again, do not care about the bad weather at all. They have umbrellas, and that's going to keep them dry for a little bit longer. Can SHIN buzz through, though? I mean, this is very expensive. It looks like this this low ground here is going to hold. Classic going to hold on the high ground. He does lose some probes, but he's been up workers this whole time, and he still maintains that advantage. So while SHIN looked like he was going to blast through, it just didn't work out that well. And now Classic has traded much better in this game. This is a nice victory for SHIN, though, forcing a cancel on that base, stopping Classic from getting further ahead economically as SHIN finally has this base up. But, I mean, still just, this is not the kind of mining you want to see for the Zerg, especially when you've traded 5,000 resources worse. Classic is going to Maynard some probes down here and be mining beautifully. And SHIN really needs more bases. I mean, he is mining out of all of these mineral patches. He needs to just take this one. Got to take it. It's yours. Classic hasn't done like any Zealot run-bys, is what I was about to say as I saw this on the minimap. So 7 Zealots finally making their way around the north side. SHIN's going to have to be prepared for those. Oh my god, Classic! What a ballsy guy. I don't think SHIN is going to realize that's there. I mean, he will eventually go down here, I assume. But that's a bold move. It's a bold move for a bold man. The Greater Spire did finish earlier, but we haven't seen any Broodlords just yet. And now Classic is up to 8 carriers. And this whole time I've been like, well, that's not that many carriers. That's not that scary. This is, man. 8 carriers is kind of terrifying. SHIN's going to spot this base, but Classic is here to defend it. SHIN's going to go in anyways. Those Zealots about to hit on the top side, but this is the real story, the real engagement here as the Corruptors desperately try to win this fight. They do have 1-1, and that's going to help them shoot through some of these carriers. It looks like SHIN's going to win the low ground as well, and going to keep pushing these ultras to try to get some damage done. Meanwhile, on the top side of the map, 9 drones going down, Lings coming out and dying immediately. The ultras, I mean, I feel like eventually they're just going to die. The Corruptors are all dead. The carriers are coming back. And while this base for Classic might go down, and he did lose this one, if he can clean up this army, it's still not going to feel super worth it for SHIN, who lost a lot of stuff on his side of the map and is still down in workers to the Protoss. And at the end of the day, I feel like this income is going to be somewhat similar. If SHIN can reestablish the drones at this base, and he is sending some more back there, he's going to have better mining, because Classic is starting to mine out pretty much everywhere here. Everywhere he has left. Yeah, there's not much. So he's going to long distance mine from this base. That is going to give SHIN a bit of an advantage. Classic again going to try to take this one because he can't seem to hold on to the top side. He's just going to not worry about it. SHIN rebuilding the Corruptor army. I mean, he does kind of need them because there's 7 carriers and 6 Corruptors. And, you know, my carrier versus Corruptor math isn't great. But I do know that more carriers beats less Corruptors. I'm very confident in that fact. You're going to want more Corruptors than your opponent has carriers. And right now, Shin does not have that. He is going to kill this base, not even cancel, just force a kill on that base. So Classic, again, losing a lot of mining here. It's going to keep Shin on top for a little while. Although I see more Zealots hitting up there as these Ultras and Lings run in and die. Oh, these Zealots being so annoying. Lings desperately trying to come save this base, but that might be another cancel up here. There it goes. Shin going to be able to retake that, but that's very painful. Pulls the pressure off of Classic a little bit too, who's trying to get some static defense up at this base. This game is so scrappy, and it feels so like unnecessarily scrappy. But Shin just decided not to expand earlier, and he's just been non-stop trying to take trades. Even though they haven't been the best trades, they've been a lot better than I feel like I was expecting. And I think a big part of that is Classic has been really focusing on just getting his army numbers up. So a lot of his army is still Stalkers and Zealots and Immortals and things that just kind of die to Ling Ultra. A lot of High Templar have gone down as well. 18 of them. The carrier count is still up at 7th. There's only 4 here. Okay, there's the other 3 coming over. Ling counterattack, looking for something, but not really finding it just yet. Oh, but Shin's going to dive in here. He's bringing the Queens this time. Can the Corruptors win this fight? They do take down a couple of these carriers, but the Corruptors, they just can't do it. And Shin throwing his head against the wall, and eventually Classic as the wall, doing his best Showtime cosplay, comes out with the W. That victorious. GG. Shin making that game really scrappy and really just trying to pummel into Classic, but Classic doing an expert job at dealing with it. The Corruptors that were first made to deal with those 2 carriers, it was a few too many Corruptors, a few too much investment for Shin. And then, I mean, the real problem is he wasn't able to get anything done with it afterwards. Usually if you have like 6 Corruptors, you can get a kill on a couple of pylons, or if your opponent's not paying attention, a Nexus. Classic was so on it with the defense, and Shin just had these units out there doing absolutely nothing until they all died, and then 2 more carriers started up immediately. It is interesting that there wasn't a lot of focus on the top side of that base, like the top corner. I think the players, again, because Shin made it so scrappy and he was so gung-ho about attacking in on the bottom side, neither player really had a chance to think about it. Gotta remember that as good as these guys are, they still have a limit on how much attention they can pay to things, how many actions they can do, how many things they can focus on. And sometimes, like, taking a base up there, it's just, like, out of the realm of what you can do. Classic did try to take the 9 o'clock at one point, and it immediately got canceled by a Ling run by. As soon as Shin tried to take the top bases, a Zealot run by went up there. So it was like they only had a couple of chances to think about it each, and they just thought about it at the same time. And I think in that situation, it ended up a lot better for a Protoss, as the Zerg really needed to get that job done right away with those first handfuls of units. He was never working with a very good army. But now spawning in the upper left-hand corner of game number 3. You're here on Site Delta. It is Shin playing for Mystery Gaming. His opponent playing for the Twisted Minds is Classic. Yeah, it was a hell of a game. It was such an unorthodox late game. I think the way Classic like teched up made it super weird also. He tried to force Shin into a bad position. I think very successfully tried to force Shin into a bad position by going for those first 2 carriers and then completely hard swapping to ground. And then Shin's response was like, well, I'll just overwhelm you on the ground. But that's not, it's not as easy. It's easier said than done when you're against a Protoss like Classic who, you know, he got that storm out. He got a lot of ground units, a lot of static defense, and he was just taking decent trades and pretty consistently had a better economy. That was the really hard thing there for Shin, was Classic's economy was just stronger for a lot of that game. He had more bases, more workers. It was a little bit back and forth, but I'm surprised Shin didn't try to expand more. I think he was just so singularly focused, you might say, on attacking his opponent that he really didn't. I think Shin wasn't playing with his brain on that one. You know what I mean? He was just trying to smash Classic. The brain activity was minimal, but like the blood was pumping. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Playing with his heart. And maybe something else that the blood pumps to. God, you're so right, Fear Dragon. I'm so sorry they don't have Christmas hats. I'm going to do my best to, like, get a Christmas map going. I love the idea of a Christmas tournament. Even if it's just, like a show match, best of 5 on the same map. Or maybe we can get a couple maps. If I figured out how to do the doodads, maybe I can get a couple different maps and just put the doodads on there. Yankee Doodad Dandy. I just love the idea of using Fruitland but replacing the fruit with
Game paused.
little presents instead. But the map itself, Fruitland, I don't know if you've looked at it recently. It's terrible. It's a terrible map. Like, it's, even by Wing standards, it's pretty bad. You know, those old Wings maps, really just not great. There are some good winter maps though. That's true. If you did all winter maps with the hats on, and then maybe the finals, or maybe just like the first map, just so that you guarantee get it, is on Fruitland, but winterized. Yeah, there's some good ones. There's some good ones. Sorry, we have a pause here, so we're just going to chill in dead silence in the meantime. Also, I definitely, if I do that tournament, I'm going to turn in-game sounds off, and I'm going to have out-of-game sounds be like Christmas jingles, you know? Just like light background Christmas music, maybe with like a fire going. Oh, dude, this is such a good idea. This is such a good tournament idea, and I feel like I don't have any time to get it together. But I feel like we can do this. I feel like we can do this. I need that Christmas hat mod. Neat Pete. Busting out the keyboard. Being like, hold on, I got this. I got this. Good. That's good. That's beautiful. Beautifully done. Fear Dragon, I was thinking the exact same thing. Straight up thinking the exact same thing. Banjo-Kazooie Christmas level music. I mean, what a banger that is. I'm gonna look it up while we're chilling here waiting for Classic and Shin. Freeze Easy Peak. You guys are not going to be able to hear that. Oh, no. All right, hold on. Temporarily do this. What a banger, dude. I could listen to this for 45 minutes, at least. Maybe like 3 hours.
Game paused.
I got to put the music back on.
Game resumed.
Just slowly fade that out. That's going to be great when I cut this VOD and that song, the entirety of that part of the VOD is just, there's just no music. Because I don't think desktop sounds will go to the VOD. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm so sorry. That was just like minutes of silence while we were jamming. We were listening to the Banjo-Kazooie winter level theme music. In case you needed to look it up to see what was going on. Absolute banger. Banjo-Kazooie, one of the best games of all time. Like, I put it right up there. It might be my favorite N64 game. It's just so good. Every level design is beautiful. The music is amazing. The character design, it's like the characters are all original in such a good way. Oh, such a good game. Put the music link on the description. That's a good call if I think of it. I will do my best to do that. Man, that makes me want to play Banjo-Kazooie now. I can. I have my N64. It's sitting right there in front of me. But I gotta organize this Christmas tournament. Oh my god, I don't have time. There's never enough time. All right, time is playing in this tournament. But right now, Classic is going for a lot of Glaive the Depths heading towards SHIN. I don't know if SHIN is really ready for this. The Roach Warren is just now going down. Oh no, SHIN is going to be sorely missing those roaches. As the Adepts finish that Shade, I don't know if I love that Shade finishing. As he's fighting the Queens instead of fighting drones, but he is going to get some Queen kills here. He might just not finish this Shade as he sees this Roach Warren is not done yet. He goes for the Shade finishing to start getting some drone kills. We're getting a couple so far, but that number will jump up very quickly as the Adepts continue getting into the bases. A few of them splitting off into the third and into the natural. The Lynx are going to kill the ones over at the third base. Oh, but they're going to target down some drones in the meantime. 13 drones going down already. This is very, very brutal for SHIN. That being said, the Hydra Den and the Roach Warren are both done. So we could see some Hydras coming out now, but we're getting up to 24 drone kills. And the Adepts are still alive, still killing Lings as well. And that is just going to be GG. The Banjo-Kazooie winter level music, Freeze Easy Peak, was just too much for SHIN. It might have been the Glaive Adepts also. Classic just... I think he just hid that. Like, SHIN didn't realize what was coming. He didn't realize that that was the build. And by the time he realized it was way too late. His Roach Warren wasn't down. Very unfortunate game there for Shin, but really nicely played by Classic. Hitting him with the build he wasn't expecting. And now, Classic is going to be in a PvP up against Hero.